Oh, hello. We're live, everybody. We're doing this. We are doing it.
Oh, hello.
Oh, hello. Oh, hello. And
And
oh,
hello to
hello.
you.
Oh, hi.
All right. Good morning. Good afternoon to everybody. So, with us today, we have Sarah Caputo, who is the Chief Marketing Officer and Chief Digital Officer of Envision It in Chicago. We have Tom Reardon, who is the founder of Sugar Free. And last but not least, on the left coast, the West Coast, Shiv Gupta, founder of U of Digital, joining us from the Bay. All right. So the four of us are all fellow marketing advertising geeks. And we were all talking independently, and we have had independent conversations about learning, development, uh, how we apply the learnings, how we apply trends to our daily activities, how we keep up with everything taking place in our industry. And so the way that I thought this could make a lot of sense and just be beneficial for everybody, all the viewers, since we are recording this right now, the viewership isn't as tight as we would hope, but it will be there in a few minutes. The industry is constantly moving and shaking. Would love to have a better understanding of the tips and tricks that you all recommend. But first and foremost, why don't we, Shiv, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, what your company does, and then we'll kick it to Tom, Sarah, and then back to that question.
First of all, I'm super thankful and excited to be here. Thank you, Jeremy, for setting this up. We are not in Cannes like
No,
all the
we're
other
not.
people. We're in our kitchens and living rooms and music studios and libraries, but we can pretend like we're in Cannes by calling this event something Cannes related. There you go. You got rosé there, Sarah?
No comment. Middle name is Rose, and if you accentuate it, it goes.
I think where you live, it's past noon, so there's that.
12:02.
So I live on the best coast, the left coast. And I've been in advertising my whole career. I was at AOL for a long time. I was at Criteo for a bit. I started this company, U of Digital, 5 years ago to solve a very simple problem in our ecosystem, which is like everyone's confused all the time. Everyone talks in different languages depending on where you work. If you're at an agency or if you're at a vendor or if you're at a marketer, like you're always just talking in different languages to people across the table, and that impedes progress of our industry. When I think some companies hide behind complexity and jargon, and I think other people try to clear it up. And we want to help clear it up. We want to help the industry improve. We want to help the industry make progress. And I think a lot of that will come from people getting smarter and more knowledgeable and talking in the same language. And so that's our mission. That's our vision. We are fortunate enough to train a bunch of awesome teams and companies across the space, including folks from Yahoo and MIQ and Quantcast and StackAdapt and Criteo, et cetera. And so that's a little bit about me. That's a little bit about U of Digital.
You're crushing it, Shiv. So is U of Digital. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, how about you? Or Tom?
Yeah,
Sorry, either one. Either one.
Tom, how about you? No? Okay.
Tom.
So I'm almost 20 years into my career, all of which has been in marketing. 3 agencies is where I started, and then I went client side, which is where I know Tom and Jeremy. Was at Allstate for 8 years, oversaw some pieces of brand, product marketing, distribution marketing, and then I rolled that out with my final role being in more the media and analytics space and housing Allstate's social and programmatic buying programs, as well as all the media under management and investments to help grow and scale. So from there, I went to an end-to-end data cognitive analytics platform where I stood up some capabilities, marketing technology, product marketing, brand. And now I'm at Envision It, building out capabilities the same. So what we do is we really lean into companies that need more of those specialized skill sets and can pull all of that together on behalf of their businesses, depending upon their business goals. And we're leaning very heavily on my background in data and analytics to build out more of those end-to-end advanced analytics capabilities and how systems and marketing technology play a role. To Shiv's point, it can be very, very overwhelming, but with partners like us, we can help make that easy, focused, and kind of prioritize not only their runway and what they're doing from a marketing, technology, and measurement adoption perspective, but also how you layer in the programs that are going to get the best ROI and business outcomes.
Love it. Thank you, Sarah. That was great. Mr. Reardon.
I will go last. My name is Tom Reardon. Super excited to be here with Sarah, Shiv, and of course you, Jeremy. My advertising journey started at Spark Foundry in Chicago when it had just won Boutique Agency of the Year, which is kind of funny now considering Spark has become this big power brand for Publicis. When I was at Spark, I got a sales pitch from a particularly charismatic account executive who focused entirely on education instead of salesmanship, and that was Jeremy Bloom. Super relevant little mention for today's session content. So I left Spark and joined TubeMogul, which was very much the most transparent DSP. Again, focused on shedding a light on some of the industry's biggest challenges. And so set me down this path of learning about programmatic. We eventually got acquired by Adobe, and I started working with advertisers to use their first-party data and their own brand data assets in their marketing efforts, which was super cool. But as a Midwesterner, I have a lot of friends at CPG brands who just couldn't really amass that much first-party data or had trouble doing interesting marketing things with it. So I formed Sugar Free about 2 years ago to help advertisers with this challenge of how do you stay relevant and use data in a cookieless world where a lot of the indicators you used to use are going away, and you might not be able to rely super heavily on first-party data. So that's been kind of Sugar Free's mission ever since. And I'm very much, folks who worked with me at Adobe, folks who worked with me at TubeMogul, I'm very much someone who encourages education with the teams I lead. And I'm someone who's like lifelong learner type, always taking courses. So super excited for the session today.
Also, I got to add to Tom's intro. He is also one of U of Digital's best experts, and constantly is bringing his knowledge of a variety of different topics to our learners. So I can attest to Tom being awesome.
Thank you, Shiv. Coming from the Dean of U of D himself, that means a lot. I appreciate that.
It's mean.
That makes me feel good as I had the pleasure of introducing you two friends together. So I concur. Tom is one of the greatest in our industry. With all that said, all three of you are great in our industry. With that said, let's hit on some of our topics. So before the introductions, what I was alluding towards was our industry is constantly moving and shaking. There's so much just evolution and innovation taking place, not just on a weekly basis, but on a daily basis. And we can hit on any and all of the trends, but what we thought would make more sense is just on a macro level. How do we all stay ahead of the curve? How do we just grasp onto everything that's changing daily? So Sarah, what are some of your tips and tricks? As a CMO, what do you do to stay ahead of the curve?
So there's a couple of things. I have had a point of view that many probably have had for some years, is that it can be very complicated and very overwhelming if you let it be within this industry, not only in terms of the tools, but then how do you prioritize them? How do you actually adopt them? So that's the first piece, is that I try not to let it overwhelm me. And I really want to make sure we're starting with what are our business priorities first, and asking what will have the best impact and what are the answers we're trying to solve for. So when I'm approaching a program in that way, I think about what will help me get the best information, education. That's going to be through LinkedIn is a heavy way to do that. I follow different people with similar titles as me, and then I see what they're following. So I piggyback to gain their expertise and efficiencies, and I cheat a little in that way. I start following everything so that I get a content feed from outside perspective and industry perspective that's going to be directly related to the marketing landscape for me in particular. I'll also follow the industries of our clients and services we offer to make sure that I'm getting the best pulse on what's happening and keeping an ear to the ground on their businesses as we try to support them. And then lastly, I try to mentor the younger folks within the team, or frankly, it's really age agnostic, people that are interested in our space on how to kind of prioritize their learning, because if you don't start somewhere, it can get, like I said, to the first point, very overwhelming quickly. And I think starting with one or two items that you want to prioritize your learning on is the best jumping off point, so that you can go a little deeper and make the most impact. And then subscribing to other kind of emails and whatnot, but we can get into some of those specifics if they're relevant later. But that's kind of how I approach some of the education
Sarah,
to my job.
Your team at Envision It, in my experience, we've been able to partner on a couple of projects. They seem really receptive to this attitude of like learning and kind of thinking about customer business problems more broadly, kind of going slowly. Like it feels like you have an eager group who leans in. Do you think you got lucky with your current Envision It team? And of course, you can see how great they are, but or do you think it's something about like the style and the approach that you're taking?
I hope it's twofold, but it's definitely credit where credit is due. When I hire for any roles, and I don't want this to make this all about me, so I'll be quiet in a minute, but related to the roles, if you are change agile, bar none, that is really important. You need to learn how to pivot and lean in and drop something that you may be doing and reprioritize quickly. But also you need to be resourceful in what you're doing and be able to self-navigate. A lot of the learning is actually dependent on, I think, on the individual, not on the leaders. I try to guide as much as possible. And then the way that I hope is partially me is I give them the freedom, first of all, the guidance, but also the freedom to make mistakes and ask questions, because that's the only way that people are going to lean in to learn new ideas. And then I get them excited around, like, you're going to learn a lot in this process. Come along with me for the journey. And I'm seeing them lean more and more in. So I'm very blessed in that I have a great team here at Envision It that is leaning into those skills, but I also look for those skills and competencies that you just can't be taught regarding leaning in and being resourceful and change agile when I recruit.
It's like a mindset in the first place. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. It's exciting.
Shiv, kicking it to you, someone who spends their entire career, your job, your company, your team, you're focused on learning and development nonstop. You are going in and you are meeting with, your team is meeting with amazing companies within the MarTech, AdTech, media, SaaS ecosystem. How do you stay current? Just give us a little bit more insight into the mind of Shiv, because when you are constantly going and your team demystifying such hard, complex systems, and then how they all intertwine. Like, help us understand. Is it through being on Twitter? Is it through being on LinkedIn? Is it through just having just blatantly transparent conversations with one another and just constantly communicating? What would you say?
Well, so first of all, I want to hang on to something Sarah said, which I think is really important, which is, I believe that the best way to learn is to teach something, right? Like if it's your responsibility to learn about something and then go teach other people about it, you take the learning really seriously, right? Like you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be in front of a bunch of people. I'm going to teach them about clean rooms or whatever it might be. I got to research every nook and cranny. I got to be able to answer all the questions. I have to fundamentally understand this myself before I can disseminate that knowledge to somebody else, right? And that's the best way of learning, in my opinion. And like, I don't want to talk, I don't want to talk too much about myself, because like I have the luxury now, and my team has the luxury of like, all we get to do every day, all day, is teach other people stuff, which means we get to learn stuff all day long, right? And I know that not everybody in the industry has the luxury of like, hey, my job is to full-time teach other people, so I can just constantly be learning. Like, people have actual stuff to do, right? Like, I got to build campaigns, or I got to go sell stuff, or whatever it is, right? So I want to talk a little bit more about folks that are not us, that don't have that luxury, right? How do you learn if your job is not to be teaching all the time? I'd say it's a few things. One is, like, let's talk about the resources in a second. I think the most important thing is the mindset. And again, this is stuff that Sarah was saying, right? So I'm just piggybacking. Like, you have to have folks that are wired with an intellectual curiosity to understand the things that they're working on, and to understand why they are doing things in a certain way, right? And I think that some of that's nature, some of that's nurture, right? And like, leaders, it's a leader's responsibility to create that environment of like, hey, always be asking why, right? Like it's annoying. Like my 2-year-old right now always asks me why about everything, but I love it. I love to see that because I love the mindset of like, I want to understand why the sky is blue. I can't always answer the questions, but like, that's a great mindset to have. So I think we should always in this industry, like not settle for just, oh, we're doing it this way because this is how we do it. Right. Well, why do we do it this way? And that's how you like dig deeper. That's how you understand things. And so I think the intellectual curiosity is crucial. I think having the mindset of like, hey, if I can find opportunities to teach people things, right? So if we can create a little bit more of a learning culture within our group, our team, our company, where we kind of teach each other things, that promotes learning, I think, a lot. And then in terms of resources, like I think, again, Sarah nailed it on the head. Like there are too many resources for you to feel like you need to subscribe to all of them and read all of them. Like
Overwhelming.
it's overwhelming, right? And so I think the key thing is like understand like where you have certain blind spots and problems that are impacting your ability to maybe do your job as effectively as you could, and go solve for those things, right? Don't feel like you have to do the fire hose thing and subscribe to everything and read everything. You're going to get lost and overwhelmed. Start by solving for some specific problems that you have or blind spots that you have, and then grow from there, right? From there, you will find like, oh, well, I subscribed to this newsletter. I read this article on this particular trade that helped me answer this question. This is a great trade, right? Like they actually have a great writing style. I like shouting out Digiday puts out the WTF series. Super helpful. I think they do a great job of breaking down pretty complex stuff in like short little articles. Great resource. I use it all the time now, right? But I stumbled on it because I tried to answer some question about some concept at some point, right? So I would say like, focus on the things that you want to solve for initially, and then you're going to find the things that you that work for you, right, from a learning standpoint. And it could be newsletters, it could be online courses, it could be the U of Digital newsletter, perhaps a little sales pitch.
I read it. I subscribe.
I haven't yet, but I will.
Oh, you will.
Yeah, we'll get you on there, Sarah.
Tom, how about you? Kicking it to you, just in terms of how you would advise someone in the industry to balance learning and working.
I'm going to pick up on a theme Shiv was talking about at the end, which is that like it has to be something related to what you're doing. Like if you try and just observe the advertising industry and like read the headlines and read your Digiday and your Ad Age and your Ad Week and follow Eric Seifert and like get the whole fire hose of information, you won't understand some of it. You won't internalize much of it. I've always thought either subconsciously or lately very much consciously, learning, there's kind of got to be like two tenets if you want to learn something. You take your class, you read about something, and you're talking to experts, and you're working on projects ideally that are related to the thing. At TubeMogul, like I very much joined TubeMogul because it felt like a learning opportunity. Again, like the pitch and the technology was all about transparency. And for the first couple of years, we literally would go to brands and agencies and just teach them how programmatic worked. So again, I'm like learning about it because I'm talking with product managers, but then I'm actually going and teaching people in person. So like I got it really, really fast. Similarly at Adobe, we had credits for college courses, and I would meet with my team every quarter and I would say, who's using a credit, and try and bubble it up and try and just draw attention to it. And people would use their free college credits on courses that were interesting. And a lot of times it would kind of fizzle out. But if it was something that was interesting and related to a project that was coming up in the next few months, data science is like a good example of that. Go learn a new data science trick, apply it to your ad analytics. Like boom, people are really learning stuff really quickly. And I'm kind of stuck with that model. Again, like two pieces of it at once. Right now, I'm trying to learn more about AI. And AI, of course, again, there's like infinite content, and you can read all the content, and like you can know what an LLM is, and like great, but who's using it and what are you doing? So with AI, I've been doing the deep learning.ai classes, which you don't know about those, they're free. There's one called AI for Everyone that is just stupid simple. Recommend anybody takes it. But then also, so that I'm not just somebody with some interesting facts about AI, like what am I doing with it? So I've started using AI to write code for me. I've used AI to produce visuals for LinkedIn posts. I didn't actually tell anyone, but I had to make a visual for geolift testing. So I had it create like a female scientist comparing maps. And I thought that would be the easiest thing for AI, but it took like a whole day of prompting, which led me down this path of learning about prompt engineering, which is like how you tell the AI what to do, But larger point being, I am now feeling like an expert, whereas before I felt like somebody who just read the press, the trades, and was just having trouble keeping up with it. So like, if you can learn and do it at the same time, like that is a sweet combination that will stick with you. And so that's kind of my go-to approach.
Immersion is what I picked up on that.
Sure.
You have to immerse yourself into it, actually roll up your sleeves and dive right in, and then realizing like, now I get it. Now I feel confident. Now I can tell people about it. That's
yeah,
great.
I think so. And if you're going to use the word immersion, you got to focus too. Because again, it's not just like dive into the industry. It's like, where is your little corner that you can become an expert that is going to be useful next quarter? That's where you want to do your immersion.
Shiv, what kind of advice would you give to corporations, businesses on how to have just stronger L&D teams? And with that, I also want to parlay it to Sarah, who has a large team, who is constantly bringing on new people. Like, any kind of advice that you could give Sarah as a business lead, how to balance that as you're gaining more steam.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest issue I've seen in working with companies and like their L&D function is like L&D really feels like a checkbox to a lot of companies. It's like, oh, we have to do it. So we're going to hire somebody, we're going to make them the head of L&D, and then we're not going to really like care about the purpose of it, right? And like they're going to just do some training and we'll check boxes. We'll just keep checking these boxes like, oh, we trained him on this product. Great. We trained him on that product. Great. And like, I don't think leaders, I think also like part of it is like leaders in the advertising industry, they don't feel comfortable around learning and development, right? It's not something that they think about or they've like been trained in, like they didn't go to school for education or anything like that. So they're like, okay, I'll hire somebody for L&D and then they'll help me check that box. But like, listen, I don't have any qualification to run the company that I run. Like I never got a master's in education or anything, right? Well, the only reason I started this company is because I realized I love training. I love getting in front of an audience and like helping them, get a light bulb go off in their head, right? Like I love that feeling. And what I realized getting into this ecosystem, like, yes, there is things that you have to learn about learning, right? There are concepts, there are tools, there are tricks, there are frameworks that are really important to learn about learning, but also like that doesn't prohibit a commercial leader, right? A CMO like Sarah or like a head of sales from rolling their sleeves up and talking to their L&D team about, okay, what are we trying to achieve from a learning and development standpoint? How are we going to do it effectively? Let's map out our learning objectives, where we are here today. Where do we want to get our people to? Like any commercial person can do that and have that conversation in a very competent way with a learning and development person, right? And so that's what I would encourage folks to do is like roll your sleeves up a little bit. I think the other thing like people don't on the commercial side always understand is like L&D people don't understand the commercial side of things, right? So like they may have their frameworks and their Maslow's hierarchy and like all their things that they do, but they don't understand like our industry that well always and the commercial needs. And so like you as a leader need to bridge that, right? With your L&D teams and help them understand the commercial needs and the commercial angles so they can plug it into the right frameworks. So I would just say like, that would be my big kind of thing is like commercial leadership in our industry really needs to get involved with L&D. And when they do, we find that it works way better, right? Like we're actually like going towards something and actually achieving something, creating transformation through learning and development, as opposed to just like check the box,
Yeah. And to build on that, Jeremy, because you did tee that up, it is a merging of what Tom mentioned and Shiv is start from the bottom up based on the work that's in front of us and what will make the most impact for a business, but then also overlay that with making sure you're keeping up with industry trends to apply new things and new ideas. So I think that's the way that I approach it is looking at the work that's ahead of us first. And that's actually how I've been able to stand up in 6 months at Envision It and data and analytics offerings and consolidate our tech stack and evaluate partners and would have the most impact. I'm teaching my team how to evaluate in a true RFP. think the other piece beyond like LinkedIn, networking, and podcasts and industry periodicals and media that are available to us, one of the best things that you can do is actually lean into the partner conversations. A lot of times I'll see in sales conversations, these partner valuations, they guide high level what we do, but it needs to be a two-way street in from the partner side that's buying the MarTech services to really solution, but also take that as a learning opportunity. They are more than happy on the vended side to teach you about their product, and they'll be most times objective about what makes up their product. How is it useful? Because they get value out of that the same. And I find that those conversations with partners in the industry have given me the best education, including Jeremy and Tom, prior business partners at Adobe. They were more than happy to support us. And I think leaning in a true partnership fashion is where you can get a ton of learning and frankly, apply it it's exponential kind of speed and scale when you really lock hands with those partners.
Just to give an example of that, from the Adobe TubeMogul Allstate partnership, like we would have Allstate teams come to our Adobe office downtown, and you'd have half a dozen to 10 people who like really cared about their jobs, were super interested in learning, incredible attitudes, and would come spend a day, it'd be like catering lunch or something, but it was very much about like, let's roll up our sleeves. And we'd have different experts come in, product managers. It was not a sales exercise for us. Like, of course, it was part of the partnership. And of course, like it would probably have some positive impact on revenue. But like to Sarah's point, because the partner Allstate had approached us in this way where they said, my team is ready for like true education. We're going to come, we're going to roll up our sleeves. We're really going to care. We rolled out the red carpet and we flew in product managers from time to time. And we just made sure that we totally nailed that. Whereas you can imagine other partners that maybe weren't putting all their cards on the table, weren't comfortable spending that amount of time with us. Shiv, I mean, one reality that I've learned from UFD is that just every group that we sit and meet with, they don't always have the same mindset, right? And you can tell a lot of times early in a session if it's going to be a banger, if it's going to be a miss, and it has just as much to do with our content and what we bring as the audience and their attitude. So I think I've seen it really, really work, what Sarah's describing, when you've established that relationship on the right terms.
Right. Letting them in. You do not want to keep your vendors blind. And I call them partners, but vendors for the sake of keeping it clear in this conversation to the business goals, the insights, and the data. Even if you cannot pipe in, the more that you can share on the business prioritization and outcomes that you expect, the better they can help you with educating on how to either sell it in or use the technology that they have, bar none.
Something that I noticed amongst the three of you, it all starts with the leadership. It all starts with the commercial leadership. It all starts with identifying the long-term goals of what your team is looking for. So Sarah, you were awesome at doing that when we worked with each other at Allstate. Your predecessor, a good friend, Michelle Boots, was fantastic as well at doing that. She realized where her team had some just needed to consistently learn. And as Tom alluded, we would listen to what the teams would want to learn about, and we would then go and cater the best expertise. And that's like what Shiv does on a daily basis for You Have Digital and his team with Miles and their whole crew, finding different experts. That's part of the reason and rationale of why we are creating the marketplace for mentorship, is to be able to have ohhello.io serve as a really easy ecosystem, so people could just go and ask a quick question, get that quick answer, and just create that connectivity. This was our first day, our first session of an immersive, awesome week for Everyone Can, hashtag Everyone Can. Shiv, Sarah, Tom, seeing that we are at time in about 30 seconds, I just wanted to thank the three of you. I appreciate all three of you. Any parting words that you have for our viewers and for those that will be viewing after we stream this, after we, share it on our feeds?
My rule of advice would be ask questions. If you don't ask questions, regardless of where your starting point is, And I came up with an acronym while you all were talking, which is ABLE, always be learning and educating.
You came up with that on this call?
When you were talking earlier, I was like, ABLE, that's funny. Always be learning. I don't know.
That is amazing.
Oh,
I'm going to get that
hello.
tattooed.
I'm ridiculous. Shiv and Tom.
Sarah, it was awesome.
Must be the rosé.
I love that. I'm just going to reiterate a point I made earlier. Start learning more now, but do it in 2 ways. Take an online class. I mentioned deeplearning.ai. That's a great one to go around and dig into the AI stuff. But always do 2 things. Take your class and schedule time to talk with an industry expert, or schedule time to talk with an industry expert and read the trades, or read the trades and do a project. So when you go to start your learning agenda or your learning journey, or go pick it back up, do 2 things, not 1. That's my advice.
I love that. And before Shiv jumps in, or you could just think like Shiv's younger son, be a 2-year-old, and just ask those questions. Shiv, I'm going to throw it to you.
Yeah, I mean, you guys nailed it. I'm struggling to give you guys a good lead behind. I mean, like we use these 2 hashtags all the time with You of Digital. The first one's simple. It's knowledge is power, right? Like the smarter you can be, the more you can empower yourself. You can further your career. You can further your team. The other hashtag we like to use is like learning is fun. Like, it's not, I have this nightmare every once in a while, like of me failing out of college. Like every month I have this nightmare.
Dude, I have the same nightmare.
I think this is like a thing. I think like 30% of people have that nightmare. It's all the kids that were like close to failing out of school, probably.
Only 1 year.
The other hashtag is like learning is fun. Like it's you're not going to college anymore. You don't have to like pass a bunch of courses to like get your GPA. Like it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like learning can actually be pretty fun if you enjoy the process of it, you enjoy the outcomes of it. So that would be what I leave everybody with.
Awesome. Well, we have some comments from people that have been watching. Thank you, Sally, for You All Can. Brad, thank you for appreciating the content. Gabe, we can do it. Yes, we can. And Amy, thank you for saying that's been a super insightful conversation. Thank you all. Would love to do this again with you. Hashtag everyone can. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, hello.
Bye, hello. Bye, everybody. Take care. Thank you.